I invite you this morning to turn in your Bibles, if you would please, to Mark's Gospel, chapter 7. Mark chapter 7. And we're going to begin at verse 1 and go through several verses throughout the chapter this morning. And if you have your Bibles open there, we're going to read it first. Surprise, right? Are you ready to follow along with me? The Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" And he replied, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions.'" Down to verse 14. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." Verse 21. "For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person." May God add His blessing to His word this morning. Amen? Amen. Shall we recite our motto together once again? All together? Heavenly Father, I give you permission to speak to me, to speak through me, to do whatever you want with my life. I trust the leadership of your Holy Spirit. Amen? Amen. Amen. One of the truisms of life is that you can't judge a book by its cover. Anybody heard that before? You can't judge a book by its cover. Things are not always what they seem. Right? I read a delightful story, allegedly true, about a zoo in Spain that decided to conduct an emergency drill. The drill simulated how to handle if a gorilla escaped from its enclosure. To make the drill more realistic, a zookeeper dressed up as a gorilla and took off loping through the zoo. Unfortunately, not everyone on staff was notified about the drill, and upon seeing the gorilla fleeing from its cage, one of the zoo veterinarians grabbed a tranquilizer gun and shot the employee in the leg. "Well," he said, "it looked like the gorilla was escaping." It did. You see, you can't always judge a book by its cover. Some things are not as they appear. There's an interesting and intriguing legend known as the White Witch of Rose Hall. It's a tale of a beautiful woman named Annie Palmer who used her unparalleled beauty to lure wealthy men to marry her. Nothing unusual about that, I don't think. But however, each time Annie married someone, she found a way to convince him to add her to his will, and then she would poison him. And he died. She continued to poison him even as she pretended to be nursing him back to health. I'm not sure of how many men this happened to, but the men would die leaving her their estate, and so it happened quite a few times, and as a consequence she became quite wealthy in doing that. She was known as the White Witch because of her alluring appearance of virtue on the outside, but her thoroughly evil nature on the inside. Perhaps you've known someone like that. Don't holler out any names. Don't want that. But as you think about it, in fact, in our lesson for today, the Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law had come from Jerusalem to investigate Jesus. They had come to investigate Jesus. And so on the outside, these Pharisees were the epitome of respectability. Everyone respected them. On the outside, they were respectable. But on the inside, however, they were full of fear and envy. And they were growing in their hatred toward Jesus. They looked for any excuse to cast any doubt on him and his followers and his teachings. So on this particular day, they observed some of Jesus' disciples eating food without first washing their hands. Well, this, of course, offended them. They were very offended. So, now understand something here. This was not about sanitation. That's not why they were offended. It was not sanitation. There was no signs hanging around that says employees must wash their hands before returning to work. It wasn't about preventing germs. They knew nothing about germs in those days. Instead, this was about maintaining a religious tradition. It wasn't about sanitation. That's not why they were offended. It was about religious tradition. In fact, Mark kind of pauses for a moment and explains to his Gentile audience living outside of Palestine that the Jewish practice of ceremonial washing was what they needed to understand. And so the word that he has here, the word for unclean, in the Greek word is koineus. As Mark explained it, meant ceremonially unwashed. Ceremonially unwashed. It was a technical term among Jews, denoting whatever was contaminated according to their religious rituals and therefore was unfit to be called holy or devoted to God. Unclean could refer to practices or to people. Unclean. In fact, the most common ritual cleansing was the washing of one's hands before eating food. And so for a loyal Jew to disregard this regulation, it was a sin. For a loyal Jew to not wash their hands was a sin. Now you and I might say these disciples were engaging in unsanitary behavior when they didn't wash their hands before eating. But in the Pharisees' minds, though Jesus' disciples were indulging in sinful behavior when they didn't wash their hands. Sinful. Let's pause for a moment and acknowledge that this tradition of ritual cleansing probably did have a positive effect on the health of the Jews that observed it. Probably did. It's fascinating, isn't it, how some of the Jewish ceremonial laws protected them from disease. And this was one of those cases, one of those rituals that they did. But protecting their health was not why they washed their hands before eating. It was because they were observing those traditions and trying to keep them intact. The traditions of their fathers. And so Jesus' disciples were not observing those traditions. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" pretty smart. And he knew what this was all about. He could tell. He could read in between the lines, so to speak. And he knew that these Pharisees were not nearly as concerned about whether his disciples washed their hands as they were determined to find fault with his ministry. Determined to cast doubt upon him. And so, Jesus replies to them here, Mark chapter 7, verse 6 and 8. He said, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. Wow, those are pretty strong words from Jesus, aren't they? Jesus, of course, was correct in his assessment of the Pharisees, because these ceremonial laws regarding ritual cleansing were not biblical. They were not biblical laws. They were a part of the traditions which the rabbis used to comment on Scriptures. In truth, they were holding fast to human traditions rather than to God's commands. You understand the difference? They were holding fast to human traditions instead of God's commands. But Jesus wasn't interested in the Pharisees' theology, but he was interested in their hypocrisy. Their hypocrisy. Wow. There are three things to point out here. Number one, it's clear that Jesus was not concerned about outward appearance, but rather inner integrity. Inner integrity. Here we are in Mark chapter 7, verse 6. These people, he said, honor me with their lips. He was citing Isaiah. But their hearts are far from me. Pastor David Yarbrough says that when he was in Bible college, he met an interesting young man by the name of Shannon. And he said what made Shannon so interesting was his looks. He said his hair was a different color each week. And his ears were loaded with earrings. And he wore big, loose, grungy style clothing. But the most interesting point of his appearance was his shorts. And he always wore shorts regardless of what the weather was. And what made his shorts so odd was the way that he wore them. You see, he always wore his shorts backwards. He always wore his shorts backwards. And as you can imagine, anyone who dressed like that at a Bible college kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, you know. And one day, says Yarbrough, he couldn't stand it any longer, and his judgmental sarcasm kind of got the best of him, and so he had to make a crack about Shannon's shorts. And to his surprise, Shannon was ready for his criticism. Shannon turned to him and he said very politely, he said, I'll tell you just like I tell everyone else who asks why I wear my shorts backwards. I tell them this, that God turned my life around so fast that my shorts couldn't keep up. Oh. But did you catch what he said? God turned my life around so fast that my shorts couldn't keep up. Quite an interesting response, wouldn't you say? Amen. Yarbrough says that something interesting happened as that semester progressed. He said in spite of his odd appearance, Yarbrough began to see through Shannon's actions and his class participation and his research papers and his prayers that he was a very spiritual man. And that his own initial reaction to Shannon was one of rejection, but when he saw past his bias to Shannon's heart, his rejection soon turned to respect. Let me ask you something this morning. Have you ever been guilty of judging someone by the way they look? We all have, haven't we? In fact, some of you might remember 30 or 40 years ago when the easiest way to give certain middle-aged men a near stroke was to introduced him to a young man with long hair. Yeah. In fact, does anybody remember Archie Bunker and his son-in-law, whom he called Meathead? Anybody remember that? Yeah. Well, one of the reasons Archie so despised his son-in-law, Meathead, was his appearance. Long hair and hippie dress. Nowadays, if you watch a Gaithers concert on television, a veritable group of traditionalists of Southern white conservative culture, some of the singers look very much like Meathead. Don't they? How crazy we were 40 years ago when we got so upset about how young people looked. Oh my. And to think that their parents even let them outside. Do you suspect that 40 years from now, people like us, church people, will realize how ridiculous our generation was to ostracize young people for such things as tattoos and piercings? Now hear me out. I say this to you not to upset you. I don't want to upset anyone here, but I want to ask you, seriously, who do you think is most in need of the gospel? The prodigal who has wandered far from the family farm, or the older brother who has stayed at home and lived out just like Mama and Daddy wanted him to? Now you see, we might treasure that older boy more, but you know what? He needs the gospel just as much as his younger brother. Amen. So we should not write off the prodigal just because he or she looks or thinks differently than we. Amen? Amen. We should not write off the prodigal just because they look or think differently than us. We've got a problem in the church today. In fact, I love something that theologian and church prophet Leonard Sweet said years ago. He said this: the church loves blue hair until it walks through the doors on a 16-year-old kid. True, isn't it? And I'm sure that you've noticed that most churches today are grading. Well, where are the young adults that so badly need Jesus? Could it be, think about this with me, could it be that we've driven them away because they feel that they're going to be judged by how they look on the outside and not what's in their heart? Of course, the same can be said about the mistakes we make with older people as well. Right? We think, well, they're old. They can't do. That's why we poured on Jack and Charlie. We could pour all kinds of stuff on them. They handle it. They're strong as an ox, except now they're in the hospital. We got to find somebody else to pick up the load. Say it louder. Reverend Benjamin Shambaugh. He tells about a woman that he once knew who got engaged very late in life. Her son, a successful businessman, flew in from the West Coast to have lunch with his mother's fiance in order to check him out, kind of thing, and tell her what he thought. Well, her son's feedback of his soon-to-be stepfather amounted to one sentence. And this is what he said: "He's a nice man, Mom, but he needs new shoes." He's a nice man, but he needs new shoes. Reverend Shambaugh says the observation about needing new shoes was very insightful. That the man was going through a grief process following the death of his first wife. And he wasn't taking care of himself very well. And at the time that he was there, he had very low self-esteem. The shape of his shoes showed that something painful was going on in his life. However, what his critics missed, says Reverend Chambaugh, was the incredible heart the man had inside. That despite the shoes, this couple still got married. They were very happy together, and he even got a new wardrobe in the process, which was wonderful. But you see how easy it is to overlook certain things that tell us a story? Be very careful about judging people. Be very careful about judging people, young or old, by their appearance. Because Jesus was not concerned about the outward appearance, but their inner integrity is what he was concerned about. You see what he says? Mark 7:6. These people honor me with their lips, he said, but their hearts are far from me. Leads me to number 2. Our tendency to judge people by their appearance is a symptom of our estrangement from them. A symptom of our estrangement from them. You see, it's by getting to know people, person to person, that we are able to get beyond appearances. In fact, in her book entitled The Shelter of Each Other, Dr. Mary Pfeiffer suggests that our obsession with appearance stems from our lack of relationship with those in our community. She said that when people lived in smaller communities, they often had deep relationships with those people that they interacted with on a daily basis. They knew about their neighbors' families, their health conditions, their religion and their values, their habits and their needs. Because people knew each other on a deeper and broader level. They didn't need to judge one another based on their appearance. But today, we're less likely to know our neighbors, our sales clerks, the pharmacists, the bus drivers, our colleagues. The list goes on. We're less likely to know them. When that happens, we begin to judge each other by the external appearances instead of what we really know. We know nothing about the people that we interact with on a daily basis beyond how they show us, or what they show us, on the outside. And you see, in a disconnected society, we place less emphasis on internal values, like character, and more emphasis on external values, like looks. In a disconnected society, which we are, the value system has switched. And we place less emphasis on internal values and more emphasis on external values. In fact, one man tells about working at a club on the weekend of the biggest motorcycle gathering of the year in his town. And when the roaring machines pulled up outside, the patrons of the club turned their eyes toward the door, and the conversation turned to uneasy whispering. And a group of the tough-looking bikers came into the club, and he says one of them walked up to him and asked him where the phone was. And so he pointed it out. And the silence in the room let everybody overhear what the biker said into the receiver. Here's what he said. "Hi, Mom. Just want to let you know I'm going to be a little late tonight." Wow. You see, it just kind of illustrates the point that if we could look beyond the outer appearances and see every stranger as someone's son or someone's daughter, what a difference it would make. Amen. In our world. Amen. The Pharisees were concerned about whether the disciples washed their hands before eating. They weren't concerned with the blind persons who could now see. They weren't concerned with the lame people who could now walk, or the lepers who were now clean, or Jairus' daughter who was back from the dead, and many other miracles. They weren't as concerned about them. Leads me to my third thing. How could they be so blind to the work of God in their midst? How could they be so blind to the worth of the people they put down? And even more importantly, could we be just as blind? or amen. One of those. Let me just ask you a quick question. Can you look beyond people's outward appearances to their inner needs? To their inner needs? Can you look beyond that? I'm going to skip that video, Andrew, okay? Because of time. I had a little video I was going to show you right here, but I'm going to skip that. Some years ago, there was a story on the news about a bizarre tragedy involving a private jet. That aboard the jet were the pilot and one passenger. During its flight, air traffic controllers noticed that the plane was off its flight plan. The pilot was not responding to the radio calls. The plane followed a straight, high-altitude path across several states and finally out over the ocean. It was tracked by radar until it spent its fuel and fell into the sea. Though the exact cause of the crash remains a mystery to this day, air safety investigators concluded that the plane must have lost cabin pressure during the flight, and so deprived of oxygen, both the pilot and the passenger either died or fell unconscious. But meanwhile, the plane's autopilot kept the plane on a straight line course, kept the wings trimmed, just as if it were consciously piloted until the fuel ran out and the inevitable crash happened. Anyone happening to look up and see that jet passing high overhead would have noticed nothing out of the ordinary, nothing wrong. But even though everything about the plane seemed normal on the outside, something was seriously wrong on the inside. It just reminds us that some of the people you and I meet every day are like that plane. Everything looks great on the outside, but inside, they're hurting. They're needy. They're lonely. They're afraid. And like Annie Palmer, the White Witch of Rose Hall, they need to reconcile their inner nature and to bring it into alignment with the outer nature. Maybe that's true of you and me as well. Maybe on the outside you look like you've got it all together, but on the inside you're a mess. We won't ask for any testimonies right now. But if you find yourself in that boat, maybe it's time you made a new start. You can, you know.
Amen.
You can.
Amen.
Because with God's help, you can begin living out the values that you truly feel on the inside. He'll help you. He'll give you the strength. He'll give you the boldness. He'll give you the courage to live out how you really feel on the inside. Like Jesus said right here in our passage, Mark 7, chapter 7, verse 6. Said, "These people honor me with their lips," said Jesus, "but their hearts are far from me." That's the question for us today. How is your heart? How is your heart this morning? Does it reflect the heart of Jesus? Does it reflect the heart of Jesus? And be careful of judging on the basis of outward appearances. Get to know people, and you might just discover that the person who looks like they don't belong is actually a child of God. May God help us. May God help us. How else? How else can we reach our world? How else can we reach our neighbors unless we see them as Jesus sees them? Oh, I hope it's not said of us, my friends, as Jesus was talking about the Pharisees and the teachers of the law when he quoted Isaiah to say, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." Oh, may God help us. May God help us. Keep our hearts in tune with Him. Let's pray. Dear God, You're the God of love, and you offer us your world and your care, and we abandon you. You welcome strangers among us, and we become jealous of them. You give us possibilities for peace and justice, and we turn them away. We're like lost children, God. Sometimes we run from you and we hardly know our way back. And yet, there you are, welcoming us, always ready to open your arms to us. Thank you. Thank you, God, for being there. And so now, author of life, we just humbly confess that too often we fall short of your intentions for us and of our expectations of ourselves. For we would touch the world with goodness, but so often we withdraw in anxiety, self-concern. We would live with integrity and stand for truth, but we're torn with uncertainties, and we let those control us. Lord, we would warm the lives of others with our love and forgiveness, but we hesitate when they're not like us, wondering if they'll love us in return. Break down the walls, I pray, Lord. We would go about our daily tasks and duties with confidence and joy, but we find ourselves struggling with self-doubt. So forgive us, Lord, and cause us to make the change within ourselves that would truly make a difference in our lives and in the lives of those around us. Lord, as we sang earlier, we need your presence, oh God. We need your presence if we are to be what we could be and what we want to be. So, Lord, I humbly ask you, that you would so cause this service of worship here today to heal us, to renew us, to strengthen us, that we might go out from here in joy and be led forth in peace. When we get our hearts right, when we get our hearts right with you, it makes everything else fall into place. Thank you, Father. Thank you. As you show us the way, may we be faithful followers. I pray. For it's in your name. With your heads continue to be bowed, I just want to pause just a moment. And you might say, Pastor, you were speaking to me today, and the Holy Spirit of God has been talking to me. And I've seen where I can improve. I've seen in my life this area. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot. That's not why we do this. But just out of your desire to want to draw closer to God, would you just, with no one looking around, just slip your hand up and let it right back down. And then it says, please pray for me, and I'll do that. I see that hand, God bless you. Yes, that one. I see, yes, thank you. I see those. Thank you, I see that. I see that, thank you. God bless you. I see that. Amen. And I will be praying for you. And even today, find a place to get along with God. And just throw it out to Him. Give it to Him. You don't have to carry that burden anymore. Yes. Get rid of it. And it can happen. So, Lord, you saw each hand was raised here this morning. You know our hearts. And I pray even now, Lord, that you would begin the process. Begin to draw close to them. Draw them to yourself. And Lord, give them the courage. Give them the courage they need to be able to follow you as you show them the way to follow and to do the hard work and say, Lord, get rid of it. It's yours. So be with them and give them that strength and give them the power. Defeat the enemy, I pray, over their souls. And may God get the victory through it all. In the strong name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Amen. Let's stand together, if you will, please, and receive the benediction this morning. My brothers and sisters in Christ, again, what a privilege to be able to worship together. And I want to thank you for continuing to lift me up in prayer and our staff as we faithfully try to follow God's Word in giving what we need, not what we like. So today, my brothers and sisters, empowered by God's Spirit and made bold as the Church of Jesus Christ, we move from this sanctuary into the larger world, because here we are, God's church gathered together, and in a few moments we'll become God's church scattered wherever we go. Yes. And now, may our witness be both glad and purposeful for the kingdom's sake. And may the peace of Christ be with you.